I realized I didn't have this on silent.
I
Take
think
two.
that is.
Welcome in to another episode of Slightly Serious.
I'm Nick, and I don't do bath salts.
Unrelated, I'm Zane.
I didn't know what else to say.
You could have just stuck with the fucking script.
Well, that's true.
I'm Nick, and then left it.
That's
No
true.
one
I
was-
don't do bath salts, though. I
mean, some of the things you've talked about probably have.
I just thought I
questioned it.
needed to clear that up. There's no bath salts in here. Hey, how you doing?
Doing good, man. I'm doing good.
Yeah. What are you cleaning up a little something?
You got water on your side.
Oh, you like that? Well, it's the condensation from my liquid death.
Put your
It
liquid
gives
deck
me
on
the tools
top.
I need to be my own boss.
Not sponsored, but will accept sponsorship from you, Liquid Death. Hit up my manager, which is me, and we'll talk.
Absolutely.
We'll talk money.
So it's Memorial Day.
It is the day of recording. It is Memorial Day. If you couldn't tell by the completely invisible waving flag behind us,
Hello, you beautiful thing.
but yes, it is Memorial Day, the day of recording.
It is. It is.
So people are out there having parades.
I actually drove through where they were setting up the parade, and fortunately,
There's a bunch of them apparently going on.
I was able to get here without any major delay.
I didn't leave my house, so it wasn't a problem.
Yeah, your house is the studio.
Yeah, I don't live here often. But no,
He's quite the hermit.
there was like a weekend of parades and fireworks and picnics. And
I didn't hear many fireworks.
I heard
this
some
weekend,
last
did you?
night. Where I was at last night, there was fireworks, so that was cool.
Very nice. Did you see any of them? Did you even
I
peek out the
I
window?
didn't see. We looked out, but there's a lot of trees around where we were, so it was not. You couldn't really see.
Yeah, trees will
Saw
do
some
that.
videos and stuff. People posting them. A buddy of mine sets them off every year for Memorial Day and 4th of July. So he had some videos posted up too. But
Cool.
some cool stuff, some
Yeah.
nice things. But another holiday weekend. So,
Yeah.
But here we are, still in the studio because doesn't stop us.
It does not stop us. No, we're here.
And we don't recognize bank holidays. We work anyways.
We do. We do. Federally recognized holidays are not something that we've ever really, it's ever slowed us down. However, there is something about this federally recognized holiday that a lot of people don't even know about.
Yeah, and we'll get into that.
We will. We will.
I mean, I'm sure you've seen the thumbnail. You have an idea.
You might have an idea, but, there's some...
Memorial Day, it's the main thing has always been the remembering the American soldiers that have died and served and all that. So we do thank soldiers that have done that. But there are some dark things that have happened on Memorial Day. One in
There
particular
are.
we are going to talk about today that I hadn't heard of until today. So we're going to do a little bit of reading into that.
We are.
We're going to have our typical Nick's Book Corner, where he'll talk a little bit more about the book he's reading. And we might do a little new segment where we kind of investigate other things that might have happened on this day in history. It might be something we bring up in future episodes. We'll kind of test it out, see how the waters are with it.
Yeah.
Do like a This Day in History type of a segment. Just kind of learn some stuff, kind of give us something to talk about.
Yeah, what else would have happened on this day?
You'd be surprised the amount of stuff that happens on like every day at some point in history. At some point, something happened. If not, then that day probably should just be removed.
Yeah, and there's that theory too that history just constantly sort of repeats itself in different forms, in different fashions, in different ways too, which is just a cool concept to even go back and look at what even occurred, certain things, and then you look at years later. I mean, this one particularly. Why don't we just talk about it? Why don't we just pull it up now? You want to wait specifically?
Yeah, we'll do
wait a little bit.
It'll be more of the.
We're gonna
the meat of the episode.
Hold it back. Hold it back.
Well, we can get into the book corner though.
Let's do Nick's book corner.
Do Nick's book corner.
right about now.
Somewhere in here was the animation. If you're on audio, there was no animation.
Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba.
But we do a little like
That's Mario.
cut animation,
In case you didn't know.
little jingle, little picture pops up on the YouTube video. If you don't watch the YouTube, I appreciate you listening on audio, but maybe give the YouTube a check. Maybe you can see our pretty faces for the first time. Makes it, arguably prettier, but
It's okay.
I have more color.
I read a lot
to
of
me.
books, bro. I read a lot. In fact, this is the only one I brought because this is the one that we're working on. It's the 12 Steps.
Yeah.
Bro, I've read so many books. Like, I finished all of Mark Twain's collection of short stories, and the final one was called The Mysterious Stranger. And even Kurt Vonnegut had originally, at one point or another, said that it was like the greatest short story of all time. I loved it. Think about it like this. The mysterious stranger that shows up is the devil himself, Satan. And he is a fourth dimensional being in a way. Like, he has the powers of a fourth dimensional being. He has the ability to, like any other fourth dimensional being, basically just reach inside you, fix whatever they want to do, or alter your timeline, for instance. Like, he could say, well, basically, there's already an established timeline. There's already something you are going to do. It's already happened. We can't see the future. We can't perceive the future, but it's already occurred. It's already, like, all of this has already occurred. And since a fourth dimensional being has the ability to see it, i.e. Satan in this case, he was able to alter the timelines. And he was not necessarily evil in the story. For instance, like, man or woman, our inherent evil as a human being is our thought that there is good and bad. When in reality, he was trying to explain that there's really no such thing as what we see as good and bad, because we're seeing it as, like, in this moment, it might be good or bad. But for instance, let's just say, for instance, that my timeline was where I was going to drive down the road. And as I'm driving down the road, someone's coming this way, they kill me, I'm dead. So my life is over. Now, let's say Satan in the story decided he was going to change my timeline. I would reach that place either faster or quicker, or faster or slower than I did before. Quicker and faster are typically the same thing, right?
So I was going to say.
Yeah. So I would reach it at a different time, and instead of being hit and killed, I would be fine. But instead, that family that was in that car dies instead. That those 6 people hit and something else, and they're the ones that die. And so there's 6 people that then die instead of me. Well, that clearly, me not being in the picture, alters the timeline a certain way for everybody involved in my life. But those 6 people that have now died, it alters the timeline for everybody that was in their lives. So then the whole set of history changes. So what seems really terrible, my death, for instance, at one point or another, might, in the greater planetary scheme of things, be a very, very good thing, because that family, and let's say that young boy, would have grown up to do something that would have shaped history had he lived to see that moment. So he was basically just like, the whole story was the mysterious stranger being Satan. And there's like a lot more to it, but the cool concept behind it was that Satan wasn't even like this evil being. He was just another fourth dimensional god, in a sense, like a being that had way more knowledge and was able to do anything and create magic in different ways and do all kinds of different things, because that's a being that has the ability to do something like that. And he was just kind of like ridiculing humans, like the way you perceive things, and your sense of time and your sense of direction and your sense of purpose and your sense of right and wrong is just like so obscured that that's what makes you evil. We're the ones that create that sort of evil. He's like, I can easily alter a timeline and kill this person or kill that person or this or that, knowing what the outcome would be changing. Whereas you as a species maliciously try to take care of yourselves or your own, or you maliciously try to harm somebody else or do something differently. It's a really cool story. So I finished all those. And then I even read another Kurt Vonnegut book, a different Kurt Vonnegut book, and it was called Timequake. And it was where basically from I believe it's 1991 to 2001. As soon as 2001 hits at a certain point, the world experiences a shift where it decides it doesn't want to keep expanding, and so it contracts, and then it brings you all the way back to 1991, where human beings then have to repeat 1991 to 2001 all over again. They know in their minds what they've already done. They know what's already occurred, and they cannot change anything. Everything that they were going to say, anything they try to say, anything they would do, naturally of its own accord, occurs in the same fashion it would have occurred in the first place. And they're aware of it. So because of that, something was called post-timequake apathy, where because you know that your life is basically on autopilot for 10 years, and you're just kind of letting it go, you stop caring, you stop moving. So then when free will fucking kicks back in, anyone who is driving a vehicle crashes into shit. Like they've lost their free will. They've lost it until Kilgore Trout, the pseudonymous science fiction writer, that Kurt Vonnegut is basically like Kurt Vonnegut's alter ego, is the one who basically like steals this bazooka and all the car alarms that are going off, shoots all the cars and all the car alarms blow up and everything like that. And he goes, stop. And he's like talking to everybody, and he gets on like, makes like announcements and everything. He's like, you were sick, but you're well again. And there's work to do. And like trying to snap people out of this trance, this post-timequake apathy. Great book. Then back onto the 12 Rules of Life. And I finished not only Rule 3 and Rule 4, which you're not caught up on.
I mean, I've read it before.
I'm halfway
I just
through
haven't.
5.
I'm rereading. I read it like 2 years ago, so I'm going back through it with him when he talks. So I've reread.
He told me to read this book.
Chapter 3.
A little history here for those of you who haven't watched the rest of ours is this is the 12 Rules of Life, 12 Rules for Life by Jordan B. Peterson, who's a psychologist. And Rule 1 was stand up straight with your shoulders back. It was about exerting confidence and exuding confidence and just straight up like how that attracts or does not attract another individual if you aren't confident, how it works with the neurochemistry of the brain, all that different stuff. Rule 2 is treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping. A lot of times, if we're responsible for helping ourselves or a pet or anybody, a friend, a family member, we will go out of our way to make sure they have proper care. They are well taken care of. Mm-hmm. We've done our best job to ensure that they are taken care of. When it comes to ourselves, because we're so aware of our faults, our negativities, our inherent evil, our own like, I don't think that I'm worth this or that, whatever it is, we don't tend to take as good of care of ourselves as we should. Yeah. And so Rule 2,
an average thing.
As an average thing.
No, there's also the extreme opposite, like narcissism, where it's they only treat themselves right and pretty much ignore everybody else.
Absolutely.
But for the general rule is
just treat yourself like someone you're responsible for helping.
Yep.
Rule 3, and this is the one we're going to discuss today.
Yep.
Make friends with people who want the best for you. And this is incredibly important. And of all 3 of these rules, I have to say that I like this one the most. Mm-hmm. I firmly believe that the 5 people you spend your most amount of time around, you will start to act the most like. And I want to read this little part right here, and then we'll discuss it.
Okay.
Here's something to consider. If you have a friend whose friendship you wouldn't recommend to your sister or your father or your son, why would you have such a friend for yourself? You might say, out of loyalty. Well, loyalty is not identical to stupidity. Loyalty must be negotiated fairly and honestly. Friendship is a reciprocal arrangement. You are not morally obliged to support someone who is making the world a worse place. Quite the opposite. You should choose people who want things to be better, not worse. It's a good thing, not a selfish thing, to choose people who are good for you. It's appropriate and praiseworthy to associate with people whose lives would be improved if they saw your life improve. If you surround yourself with people who support your upwards aim. They will not tolerate your cynicism and destructiveness. They will instead encourage you when you do good for yourself and others, and punish you carefully when you do not. This will help bolster your resolve to do what you should do in the most appropriate and careful manner. People who are not aiming up will do the opposite. They will offer a former smoker a cigarette and a former alcoholic a beer. They will become jealous when you succeed or do something pristine. They will withdraw their presence or support or actively punish you for it. They will override your accomplishment with a past action, real or imaginary. I mean, have you ever met somebody who, anytime you do something well or you start to really start to change or work on something to better yourself, they'll just bring up your faults from the past? Mm-hmm. It's terrible. Maybe they are trying to test you, to see if your resolve is real, to see if you are genuine. But mostly they are dragging you down because your new improvements cast their faults in an even dimmer light. It is for this reason that every good example is a fateful challenge and every hero a judge. Michelangelo's great perfect marvel, David, cries out to its observer, "You could be more than you are. When you dare aspire upward, you reveal the inadequacy of the present and the promise of the future. Then you disturb others in the depths of their souls, where they understand that their cynicism and immobility are unjustifiable. You play Abel to their Cain. You remind them that they ceased caring not because of life's horrors, which are undeniable, but because they do not want to lift the world up on their shoulders where it belongs. Don't think that it is easier to surround yourself with good, healthy people than with bad, unhealthy people. It's not. A good, healthy person is an ideal. It requires strength and daring to stand up near such a person. Have some humility. Have some courage. Use your judgment and protect yourself from too uncritical compassion and pity. Make friends with people who want the best for you." This book is trashed. I got a lot of coffee on it.
Doesn't mean a yes man.
Does not mean a yes man.
Because you want people that will look at what you're doing and can give you honest feedback and criticism.
Absolutely. And my daughter the other day told me that I needed to say yes to everything. She wanted to have a yes day. And I said, you know what? I can tell you safely that I'm not going to do that.
Have you seen the movie Yes Man?
I have.
So I take a lot from that movie. I just saw it again recently, within the past week.
It's a great movie.
And at the end, because at the beginning, spoilers if you haven't seen it, it's been out forever, so I don't feel bad.
Yeah, fuck you.
Jim Carrey is a very cynical man coming through a divorce. He just avoids everything. He goes to work, goes right back home, watches movies, doesn't leave his house, doesn't go out, just stuck in a rut of, if I don't do anything, things can't get worse.
Feeling sorry for himself bullshit.
One of his previous friends drags him to a seminar about say yes to everything, be a yes man. So it's this whole philosophy, and he misconstrues it of, I have to say yes to everything, can never say no, can't say maybe, you just say yes. So for most of the movie, anytime anybody says anything, little or big, he just says yes. Homeless guy, do you have some money? And he pulls out and hands him $5, but he sees the rest of it and goes, why don't you just give me all of it? So he's like, oh, okay, and just hands him all of it. He's just saying yes to everything. And by the end of the movie, he goes back to that guy. He's like, you told me to say yes to everything. Now it's ruining my life. He's like, I don't tell you to say yes to everything. You need to learn to say yes, but then also have the judgment to know when not to. It's still a judgment thing. It's just don't be afraid to say yes to some things.
Correct. And that's exactly what I told Kieran too. I said, look, you have to understand that I want to be a fun parent, but I have to be a good parent as well. And if I said yes to everything, that wouldn't be being a good parent. Like, for instance, when we were in the sun for 4 hours and it was getting so hot and you wanted to keep playing, but I know our sunscreen's worn off and you're starting to burn. I can see that you're starting to run around and get a little bit tired and you're hurting yourself more because you've had so much sun. And I know as a child that you don't make those right calls all the time. You might not always make the right call. You'll run until you pass out and you'll stay up all night long until you fall asleep on yourself. And I have to be able to make that call and say, hey, you know what? I think you've had too much sun. You're going to start getting burned. I think you're really going to hurt yourself because you're too tired and you can barely stand up and you're, tripping over yourself and everything. And so it doesn't mean yes, man. But what this means is I know that I have had friends in the past where, let's say I quit smoking and I want a cigarette. And they'll just hand me them. They'll just hand me a cigarette, you know, and they'll know I've worked for a month to try to quit or 2 months to try to quit. Whereas I think what they're really saying is like a real friend.
You want somebody
Someone who wants
that when
the
you're like,
best
man, I
for
want a
you.
cigarette, and they're like, why?
I'm like, dude, no, you've spent so much time quitting. You know what I mean? I really, but also like, let's say I wanted one so bad to the point where I was like driving erratically or whatever. And I'm like, I'm so frustrated. I can't fucking function or whatever. You know what I mean? It's driving me crazy. Like my friend obviously wants the best for me. They want to like, you know what I mean? So it's like, calm down for a second, you know what I mean? But like, I'm not going to condone this. I'm going to give you this right now.
I wouldn't even.
But I don't think you would.
I wouldn't even
try to
give
find
you
a
a cigarette.
different.
We'd find another way to calm
Another
it down.
outlet.
We'd pull over. We'd stop driving. I would drive. It would do something else to,
Yeah.
and like get your mind on something else. Get you some food.
Well, that's
do
what you
something
did
like
for me
that.
the other day. I was having a really fucking hard time the other day. You remember? I
Yeah,
mean, I
we
fell onto
literally
your
just
porch
spent-
crying. I was so upset.
And then we just spent the day hanging out. We got food. We played some get cards, and we just kind of
You changed all your plans for me. You held off what you were going to do for the night. You're like, you know what we're going to do, man? We're going to get some food. Let's get you some food. And let's hang out and have a fun time. That was everything and more that I needed. That's a friend. And that's what they mean. Surround yourself with people who want to better you. You know, like if you want to better yourself, then if you're around people who are constantly fucking you up.
Yeah, and you want people that like when you come to them with like an idea or something like, well, we have this podcast and we have another channel, and we go to somebody we know and be like, hey, I have this. You watch it, let me know. And like you want people that will be like, hey, I liked it. You probably could do this different, or I didn't really like this part. You want people that are honest with you. Now you'd be like, yo, man, that was awesome. You did a great job. I'm like, no criticism.
Yeah.
They're just constantly like, that's great, doing great, keep it up. It's like, one, did you really watch it? And two, there's always going to be something that can be improved.
Oh, absolutely. I look at every single one of our videos and I'm like, I don't like this, but I like that. That's okay.
Yeah. And like, again, like the podcast thing's a little different because we don't really script this. This is just on the fly. But like our other one, like we're constantly changing up production style and how we do things, just trying to learn what works for us, and finding that balance between quality and stress, the time spent on it. I'm getting better and faster at the editing and things like that, so that's helping. But like we want people around you that give you honest feedback, not just what they think they want you, like what they think you want to hear. They give you what they honestly think, honestly believe.
Yeah.
And that's an important distinction when it comes to all that.
You got to keep it real with people too.
Yeah.
Like you don't just want people that are going to tell you you're great and like all that, because that's not.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't, like when you're having an issue and you go to somebody, you don't want them to just be like, it's going to be okay. Like maybe it's not. But like right now,
It's okay
gonna
to
hurt.
admit that something's shitty as fuck.
Yeah, like right now it hurts and sucks. So right now we're going to figure out a way to get through right now.
Yeah.
I don't know the future. I can't change the future, but I can change right now. And for that, and like that moment, that's why like last week I was like, yo, let's just fuck everything else. And let's just hang out.
It was a game changer for me.
Like we don't have to like stress. We don't have to like, because we were like, oh, we gotta edit. We do all these videos, this and that, and we just hung out, chilled. We did end up recording like 2 short videos for the other channel, but like in that moment, it wasn't about all this other shit. It was just in that moment, like we just needed to get our minds off shit. You especially.
Yeah,
And
I
like,
did.
so like it was just, we just hung out, played cards,
And like I know, even when I, just speaking of friendships in general, and like just using you and I as an example. Let's say a video comes out, and since you're the primary editor, I see some stuff that I'm like this or that, you know. I do think to myself even before I'm about to like text Zane about it or call him about it or everything, like how I can approach it in a way where it's not going to offend him, or where he's not going to take it the wrong way, or he might not think about it the wrong way. So it's just like, just knowing that like, even if I do, the amount of time I spend just thinking about like, all right, well, I'm going to call him and we'll talk about some other stuff first. You know what I mean? And like because like my most important thing is my friendship with Zane. Above all of this, above like even doing this and everything, like my friendship with him, because I love him like he's a brother to me, and like I'd go out of my way to help him if he needed help. Because of that, like, and that's so important to me that like other little things And I know, I might come off like a dick certain times and everything. So it's like, I want to do what I can to ensure that like he's okay with it as well. Like he's not getting so overwhelmed with our schedule and all the fucking stuff you have to constantly do on the sidelines of this, where I just show up and I'm just a fucking personality on here for a little bit. I'm like, yeah, I'll give you some like ideas here and there. And, I help with this and that, but it's like ultimately setting all this up is a huge thing. You still work, you still have a girlfriend, you still do your things, it's like you still have a life, you still have a family, and it's like that takes your time too. And a friend is someone who's aware that is affecting you in a way as well and wants to make sure that you're not being too overwhelmed. And I think you do the same thing with me, and I think that's why we're healthy for each other.
Yeah, so like we're getting better at like this stuff, and so like I'm learning a lot with editing and finding ways to kind of streamline it for myself, so it's not as like stressful and overwhelming. There's a lot to learn. Like,
it is a lot to learn.
I mean, there's a lot of simple aspects to it, but like I'm doing video editing now. I'm learning to do the thumbnails properly, so that's photo editing and things. And
and like what I know myself. I know I didn't know this. Zane might have. A lot of you might not know this. But a lot of these videos, a lot of these podcasts, a lot of these YouTube shows, all the shorts, things like that you see, a lot of the time, if not the majority of the time, I can't say all the time, but a lot of it, these people have professional editors, people who are paid to make these videos, edit them, make sure the sound's good, they're behind the thing. This is just us, mostly him. Entirely different. And I don't know if you know this or not, but the amount of money even necessary to be able to record your sound the way that we record our sound and have a fucking camera and have computers and have lights and have a green screen and have a table and chairs and a soundboard and like all these things. Do you know how much money it really takes to even start something like this up, let alone constantly edit it and upload it? And do you understand that like when you're uploading these things or when you're trying to stream these things too, that there's rules and there's guidelines and there's how much you're even allowed to upload, and you need to make sure that you don't copyright anything, and the music that you have. There's so much shit. Holy fuck. I had no idea.
Yeah, there's a decent bit that goes to a lot of it. And like I learned some of the like basics of a lot of this stuff doing like video game live streaming and stuff, but it's still a different ball game going from like Twitch, where I used to do the video game live streaming, to like YouTube and things like that. It's just a lot different from live format content to recorded content, and then even from like this podcast stuff that we do to our other channel where we do more short, like 10-15 minute videos with little games, and there's more editing and there's visuals on top of it, and like there's just different things, and that you're learning all this different stuff. And now I'm trying to like go back and like take the stuff I'm learning now and putting it back into my live streaming stuff, because I do want to get back into doing that too, because I do enjoy that. But it's just a matter of balancing time with everything, and it's not easy, but there is enjoyment in it. It's stressful. There's days where I'm like, why the hell am I going through all this? Is this worth it? Like, that's just a part of it. But then, we put a video out and it does well, or like I hear something like, hey, I like the video, like you did some good stuff on that. And like I learned the other day that I didn't even, because like I've never sent a direct link of our stuff to my girlfriend. I've just never brought it up. She had so much going on in her life. I've just never burdened with her. And she brought it up the other day that she watches our stuff on her own. And she was commenting on it. And like, she's like, it's not, necessarily my cup of tea, but she's like, I do think you guys are like doing good stuff with some of your videos. And like, it's just like hearing that from some people, it's like, oh, it's maybe there is something here. And but it's hard sometimes to not fall into that like that rut, like when I'm struggling with an edit, or we've had times where I've edited a whole video and like something corrupted, or like we recorded a video and the sound was just fucking gone. I couldn't find it saved anywhere on my computer, or a file was corrupted. We had the one episode of the podcast that the audio corrupted, where every like couple seconds it was just a silence, and it was like unusable audio, and it's hard in those moments to
Can
not
be
just
discouraging.
like discouraged and frustrated and
Or you see other people's views and how many things they get and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
it's like
I try
that
not to.
also it's compare yourself, that other rule too that we haven't even got to yet. We won't even get to it, but it's just to say it.
Yeah.
It's compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not who someone else is today.
Yeah.
And I look at who we were yesterday or the day before or a week before, and I look at our first video we put out. I look at the quality of that video, not only visually, but sound-wise.
Mm-hmm.
I look at the editing of that video. I look at how we were even able to like articulate or like, I mean, how uncomfortable we seemed in front of the camera. Like,
Oh, yeah.
You know, we looked so different.
It's literally like the one thumbnail from one of our videos. I'm just like, sitting in
yeah,
the
like
chair,
we just looked so uncomfortable, like so
the
not
camera
just
was like above
ourselves.
us. We're in like weird.
Whereas now I'm
chairs.
like fucking blowing my nose. I'm like, I'm still a human being, you motherfuckers. Like, you know, like I have a fucking allergy right now. So,
but we're framed better. There's
but it's just
lighting
it's
and-
way better, bro. And I know that one day we'll look back at this
yeah.
and
This
every
is-
single moment.
This
of
is
it.
only our 14th episode.
14 episodes. So
Just-
we've really
just
been doing
over
it for how long?
3 months. This is like halfway through 4 months for us.
Yeah.
So like, we're just starting on this journey, and like it seems like we've done it for a while, but we're barely started into this.
Just months. Not
Just
even
a couple months,
Not
yeah.
even half of a year we have been doing this. So I would say we're doing very well. And I'm proud of us. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of me. I'm proud of this. I believe in this. I believe in us. And I'm having a good time doing it. I'm having fun doing it. It's therapeutic for me. I get to spend time with you. I wouldn't change it for the fucking world.
No, definitely having a good time. So I look forward to more things and the more stuff we learn. But yeah, it's definitely going to be a ride.
Yeah,
Look forward
for
to
sure.
seeing how the other channels go. But yeah, so I'm good. We are going to move into like the main chunk of what we were going to talk to you about today. And so we're going to do the main story. And then we're going to do a little segment at the end that on this day in history thing I talked about. Just kind of look over other things that have happened on May 27th. Not Memorial Day is not always May 27th. It's just today happens to be the 27th when we're recording, and it's Memorial Day. So we're going to look at a major event that happened on Memorial Day back in the 30s. And then we'll go look through other just historical things as like a little last search through.
It's called the Memorial Day Massacre.
That it is.
The Memorial Day Massacre. And it happened in 1830 or 1930.
I think it was 19. It was
1939.
definitely 19.
Yeah, not the 1800s, the 1900s. 1937, when several small steel makers.
Hold on. I got to trying to get this
Oh,
up
he's
for
doing
them.
a thing. You're going to pull it up behind us. It's going
Yeah.
to probably go right about here, somewhere in this direction.
Literally right where his hand is. But so yeah. So
Wow.
we're getting this information. It's going to be from the Illinois Labor History Society. I didn't want to just do Wikipedia
Yes.
because there is a open source like kind of website where anybody can put stuff. I figured this is going to be a little bit more like proper historically like accurate type of thing.
Yeah.
This Memorial Day Massacre. 10 demonstrators were killed by police bullets during the Little Steel Strike of 1937. So apparently there was a strike going on with the steel factories and stuff when several smaller steel makers, including Republic Steel, refused to follow the lead of U.S. Steel by signing a union contract. The strike was called by the steel workers.
So a strike was called. Refused to follow the lead of a bigger steel corporation
Yep.
by signing
Big
a
steel.
union contract.
So they didn't want to unionize, so
strike.
they went on strike against a union. Usually
Yeah.
it's unions that strike. This is a strike against unionizing back in the 30s.
Well, no, I think the
Because
strike was called by the steel workers because they
Well,
wanted.
No, it says they refused to follow Big Steel by signing a union contract.
Oh, they didn't want the union. I see. Okay. You're right. So, as a show of support, hundreds of sympathizers.
Steel Workers Organizing Committee, the SWAT sympathizers from all around Chicago gathered on Memorial Day at Sam's Place, where it was the headquarters of the strike. And they had speeches. The crowd was being marched around and towards the mill. They were stopped by a formation of Chicago police. While they were in front, demonstrators in the front were arguing for their right to proceed. The police fired into the crowd and then pursued the people as they fled.
So now they're firing into the crowd, and as people are fleeing, police are chasing them. Continue.
It says here, Molly West, who's a typographical union member, and she was a youthful demonstrator at the time, says she recalls the command addressed to her to get off the field or I'll put a bullet in your back.
Oh.
Can you imagine?
You can't shoot someone from behind. Legally, police can't shoot you
but
from
still,
behind.
they can't just open fire into a crowd anyways, especially if
Could
it was
you
a peaceful
imagine they're
protest.
running after you? It's a protest, and they go, get off the
And,
field or I'll
like,
put a bullet in your back.
There's also nothing here saying it wasn't a violent
Kent
protest.
State
They were
all over
arguing
again.
for their right to proceed with a protest.
This was even
it's
before
legal
the
or
Kent State
Yeah, this
one.
was the 30s, and so it was crazy. There's a sculpture for
So how many people?
the thing.
Keep going down. Keep going down.
Yeah, I'm going through here, but
There's a sculpture made with 10 steel pipes because there was 10 people, it
yeah,
looks
it
like.
says, but 10 people were killed with the bullets, and
Yeah.
I believe because I looked
How
it
many were
up.
injured, maybe?
We'll go to the Wikipedia now. See if it has any more info. It says shot and killed 10 unarmed. Incident. Outdoor picnics and bombs. Some estimate the crowd was from 1,500 to 2,500 people, including picketers and their families. A line of roughly 300 policemen blocked the path. Crowd fled. Police shot, killed 10 people. 4 dying that day. 6 other throughout the time. 9 people were permanently disabled, and another 28 had serious head injuries from police clubbing. That's crazy. But yeah, it says 50 people were shot, 10 later died, and 100 others were beaten with clubs. And there's a list of all the people that, like the names of the people.
This
that died.
was on
A 17
Memorial
year-
Day. This was
17-year-old
1937 on Memorial Day.
17-year-old kid died. That's
So you have your people, Memorial Day, a recognized holiday for those who were killed in the line of service. And now, on Memorial Day in 1939, you have people in a line of service killing a bunch of peaceful protesters. Wonderful. Welcome to America.
a coroner's jury, which is a body convened to assist a coroner in an inquest. And
Determining the
identifying cause
identity of a
death,
deceased person, yeah, and the cause of
deemed
death.
it a justifiable homicide.
Press often called it a labor or red riot.
Franklin Roosevelt responded to a union plea. The majority of people are saying just one thing: a plague on both of your houses.
To Franklin Roosevelt and
yeah.
the coroner's jury, a plague on both your houses.
Yep. Memorial plaque at the base of the flagpole with the names of 10 people that were killed is located. There's the address of it.
Was it a peaceful protest? It just says
nothing here said it wasn't.
It didn't say they were acting out. I mean, but
So it was
even if you're
picketing and
acting out,
stuff.
there's no reason to use brutal
You don't
force.
have to
There's
go
no
lethal-
brutality.
Unless lethal force was used on the officers,
Yeah.
you're not supposed to use.
No.
It's the force matrix. You match more force with force. If they come at you with non-lethal things, you attack them with a non-lethal thing.
Rubber bullets. So
Yeah,
even
yeah.
that would be excessive.
Yeah, there was newsreel footage. For the most part, that footage is gone these days. Like, there's no actual video footage of it anymore. But yeah.
Of course not. Also, when
10
you
dead.
go and you look up things like, what are major events that happened this day, Memorial Day, or anything like that, like this just doesn't show up. Like you have to know this. Type in Memorial Day Massacre, and then you have to search for it because they're not going to show a bunch of crazy negative stuff. They're going to show you all the positive historical things. Let's go to this day in history. Zane, take it away. I'll be right back.
Yeah. So, this is just a site called On This Day, and they literally just break down what has happened in this on this day in history, for as far back as pretty much anything is recorded, you can break it down by birthdays, deaths, film, music, sport, things like that. But we're going to kind of go through just the major things they list here in the historical events. Starting in 308 is the earliest back. Marcellus begins his reign as the Catholic Pope. Died a year later. Bosnian Highlands battle in Croatia. Richard III was a prince for 2 weeks. That sucks. For King of England after Richard I died in 1199. Nothing really like too crazy here. Battle of Shanghai Pass. Armies defeated by Ming and Manchu forces. Denmark and Sweden signed the Treaty of Copenhagen, ending the Second Northern War. The Habeas Corpus Act passed in England, strengthening a person's right to challenge unlawful arrest and imprisonment. Between Heinsius, I don't know what any of that is. St. Petersburg is founded in Russia. Turkish troops occupy Orsova and Achakov in Eastern Europe in 1738. James McLean, a patent for piano improvements in 1796. Fort George in Canada was captured by Americans in 1813. We were fucking up Canada, apparently.
Yeah, I guess so.
The Euston Station, Great Hall of Euston Station in London, looks like a train.
1849.
Yep.
It's the opening of that.
Mormon Temple in Nauvoo, Illinois, is
It was destroyed by a tornado in 1850. Let's go to the tornado. Pull up anything you can about that tornado. That seems cool. A Mormon temple in Nauvoo, Illinois. Is that how you say it? Nauvoo?
As the last Mormons were being driven from their homes by a mob in the Battle of Nauvoo in 1848, a temple was ransacked by the mob. Finally, in 1850, a tornado
Arsonists
destroyed
set the
last
building on
remaining wall.
fire, and some of the walls collapsed, and then the
Yeah.
tornado destroyed the last
The final part of it was destroyed.
remaining wall. Okay, so it wasn't like a huge.
But I mean, there was a battle. People were trying to 1848. So this
Run
is
the Mormons out of their home.
before like independence and stuff. So they
Yeah.
were just pushing people and like fighting them for their beliefs and religious beliefs and stuff. And then the building, as it was last, like it burned in 1 year and 2 years later. The
I wonder
what was
how
left of
big
it
that
fell down.
tornado was.
Yeah, they probably didn't have ways to measure back then.
True.
But yeah,
True.
the Marine Telegraph from Fort Point to San Francisco was completed. Pretty cool. Dr. William Palmer found guilty of poisoning. That looks interesting.
Oh, that does look interesting. On June the 14th, 1856, the notorious Victorian Dr. William Palmer was hanged outside Stafford Prison for the murder of John Parsons Cook. Palmer was accused of poisoning Cook by strychnine. He denied the crime but was found guilty at the Old Bailey in London and sentenced to hang at Stafford Gaol.
Damn. Motherfuckers poisoning people. Battle of Hanover Courthouse in Virginia. U.S. Civil War in 1963. Confederate gunboat.
Chattahoochee's steam boiler explosion kills 19 crew members on the Apalachicola River.
Apalachicola River in Florida. Damn, boat just exploded.
That sounds like an
Steamboats,
American name. Apalachicola.
1963 Civil War. Siege of Port Houston, Louisiana by Union forces begins. It lasted 48 days. The longest American military siege. Skirmish at Salem Church. Heinrich Schliemann discovers Priam's treasure, a cache of gold and other objects in Troy. I'm kind of interested here.
Gold? Yeah, I want to know about
Features a cache of gold and other artifacts discovered by classical archaeologist Frank Calvert and Heinrich Schliemann at Hisarlik, known as Troy, northwestern coast of modern Turkey. Yeah, so just a lot of archaeological.
They just found a bunch of stuff, yeah.
Cool. Australian cricket fast bowler.
Fred
I don't know
Spofford
any of this
takes
means.
10 to 20. Alexander III crowned Tsar of Russia in Moscow. That was in when? 1883?
Yep.
1893?
Yisroel forms at Katzwat. What is
Forms of Katowice.
What
in
even
Poland?
is
I don't even know
this?
what that is. Agadeath Yisrael.
a union of political movement for
Orthodox Jewry.
so Orthodox Jew stuff. Interesting. British inventor Bert Akers
Patent's
patents.
film camera projector. So the camera? Is that when the... Let's see what's that? What's that? Was the camera invented? Invented the first British 35 millimeter moving picture camera.
So first film.
Which was the first daylight loading home movie camera and projector. He was also the first traveling newsreel reporter in international film history and the first European filmmaker who had his film shown in the United States in public performances. Wow.
Nice. Interesting. It's pretty cool.
Bert Akers.
Bay District Racetrack in San Francisco closed.
Tornado hit St. Louis, killing 255, leaving thousands homeless in 1896.
Damn. Arthur Pinheiro, Trelawney of the Wells premieres in London. Lord Robert's army fights in Val of South Africa. Vale. Queen Wilhelmina opens the new Amsterdam Stock Exchange, designed by influential architect Hendrik Petrus Berlage.
We're not even going to pronounce any of these names right, but...
New York Giants first baseman Dan McCann collects MLB record 5 stolen bases in a 3-1 win over the Brooklyn Superbas.
Battle of Tsushima.
A Japanese fleet destroys the Russian East Sea Fleet in the Battle of Tsushima, the only decisive clash between modern steel battleships in history. Cool.
Now we're all the way to 1906.
Yeah, that was 1905. There's gunpowder and everything in that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
First outing of Gustav Mahler's Sixth Symphony, Essen, Germany.
Bubonic plague breaks out in San Francisco.
Wow. So the bubonic plague broke out in San Francisco in 1907.
Plague of
On Memorial
1900
Day.
1904 was epidemic of a bubonic plague.
I guess it wasn't on Memorial Day. It was just this day. Because Memorial Day would have been different then.
Yeah. Damn. Centered in Chinatown, the first plague epidemic
Speaking
in the
of
continental
bubonic
United
plague,
States.
do you remember? I don't know. You've seen this. You've probably seen the movie The Secret Garden when you were growing up.
No.
No, and you definitely never read the book. But the beginning scene of that was like the bubonic plague, where she was like a little girl in like her ritzy family's house, and they're like all having like this party, and they're drinking out of wine cups and everything, and then before you know it, they're falling over face first, dying, and the bodies of her parents are being burned, and she's becoming an orphan. It's like the beginning of the movie in the book, The Secret Garden, which is like so abysmal. I mean, it's the bubonic plague was, think about it, like people were just dying so quickly and the bodies were piling up that they weren't even able to get proper burials. They had to just, in order to
Hits
eradicate even
and
that
fires,
plague,
yeah.
they just set them all on fire. So bodies are just burning. And like imagine a little kid as your parents die, having to sit there while your parents just fucking burn in front of you, and then you have to find a place to go. That's fucking terrifying.
1916, Woodrow Wilson addresses the League to Enforce Peace, founded in 1915, and gives public support for the idea of a League of Nations. So pretty much the United Nations.
28th U.S. President Woodrow Wilson. 1918, Third Battle of, however you say that, German offensive overcomes British forces. World War
1919, first transatlantic flight ends. The U.S. Navy flying boat took 11 days. Tatar ASSR forms in Russia.
Japanese military intervention in Chinese Civil War, 1927.
Thomas Masaryk, reelected president of Czechoslovakia.
For a second time.
Masking tape, 1930. It's real important. I make sure we know when masking tape became a thing.
1930 was masking tape? Really?
Masking tape, yep. 1930 also, The 1,046-foot Chrysler Building in New York City, the tallest man-made structure at the time, opened to the public. A full-scale wind tunnel for testing airplanes at Langley Field was built in 1931.
Wow.
Auguste
1931.
Piccard and Paul Kipfer take first flight into the stratosphere by balloon from Germany. Pretty cool.
Now the stratosphere is above the atmosphere.
I think it's part of the atmosphere. I think it's just the next layer
So
above
it's like
what
our
technical-
regular and then
Yeah,
stratosphere.
I don't
would be
remember
next.
the layers.
Let's look up the layers. I want to know layers like an onion. Layers of atmosphere. So troposphere.
So the layer where you typically in is troposphere. Stratosphere is the next layer past it.
Then the mesosphere, which is
Mesosphere.
where
I guess
Like
most
comets
shooting
and
stars.
stuff.
Yeah. Thermosphere is clouds and stuff for the most part. It seems.
no, that's not clouds.
Oh, it's the ozone layer.
No,
And exosphere. is-
no. It wouldn't even be ozone layer. Thermosphere would have no gravity in it. There wouldn't be any clouds or anything. You should look up find one where it tells you what. But thermosphere wouldn't have that. The picture that they put on that was weird. It was not clouds. So it looks like an aurora borealis.
Yep.
Oh, it was the aurora borealis.
Yep. Space shuttle and the International Space Station are there.
Yeah.
Some satellites are out a little
there
bit
you
further. Mesospheres where meteors are. Stratospheres, commercial jet airplanes.
So
now.
troposphere is 7 miles up. 31 miles up is where the stratosphere ends, where you hit mesosphere at 50 miles. 62 is the Kármán line, and then you hit 440 miles up, you hit the thermosphere.
62,
6,200 miles is the exosphere.
And then it's just the expanse of space. It says
Yeah.
the exosphere gradually just fades away into the realm of interplanetary space. Neat. We learn things, Chad.
So they got all the way to the stratosphere, the
Which at
second
that
layer,
time, in a hot air balloon.
in a fucking hot air balloon.
now
bro.
now our planes fly at that height, but like back then, the fucking what was that 31?
Even our planes don't fly at that height.
Now
Do
they
it?
do.
they?
Modern jets do.
Oh, they do.
That's what that one thing we just looked at. The last site said commercial jets flight there now.
Oh, okay.
Austrian Communist Party was banned in 33. Century of Progress Exposition in Chicago in 33.
33 Federal Securities Act signed. Let's skip forward a little bit.
What was the Federal Securities Act? No, that's not.
Also known.
First major federal legislation to regulate the offer and sale of securities. Stock market stuff.
Yeah.
Walt Disney short film Three Little Pigs released in 33. FDR's National Recovery Act was considered unconstitutional in 35. Queen Mary, RMS Queen Mary, left
37,
New York
the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco opened
to pedestrians. Yep. Fun fact: my mother helped repaint the Golden Gate Bridge.
Really?
Yeah.
When?
I don't think I was born yet, or
Really?
I might have just I had to have been. She was in California. I was real little then. But yeah, when we lived out there, we didn't live far from San Francisco. She got to help paint some of it. More baseball shit. Dunkirk, 1940. British and Allied forces begin the evacuation of Dunkirk. Operation Dynamo.
What is Operation Dynamo?
I've heard some of this before. Dunkirk evacuation of British expeditionary forces and other Allied troops from the French seaport of Dunkirk. Naval vessels and hundreds of civilian boats were used in the evacuation.
Okay.
About 198,000 soldiers and 140 French and Belgium soldiers.
Nice.
Because they were being invaded by Germany, so they evacuated them from sea by
Gotta
sea.
get out of there. Get out of there. Get to the chopper.
There's a movie about this.
Is there?
World War II, the Larry, Paradis Massacre. 97 soldiers from a Royal Norfolk Regiment Union were shot after surrendering to German troops. So they surrendered and they got executed.
1941, FDR declares state of emergency after a German U-boat sinks the American-flagged SS Robin Moore.
German battleship Bismarck sunk by British naval forces.
41.
Probably the ship that did the first thing. Adolf Hitler.
1942, Adolf Hitler orders 10,000 Czechs murdered in revenge for attempted assassination of Nazi leader Reinhard Heydrich, who eventually dies, leads in June to annihilation of Linus.
Attempted assassination of Heydrich was thrown by a grenade. So this is orders them to be murdered for revenge of the attempted assassination, and the assassination was by grenade.
Thrown
Yeah.
by what? I can't see.
Czech rebels. Yeah, in Prague.
Operation Anthropoid.
And then he died later from an infection.
Nice.
Dwight Miller awarded Naval Cross for deeds at Pearl Harbor.
Italian army begins siege of French western fort in
Brazilians meets secretly. Allies landed in Biak, Indonesia.
Lotta.
Operation Horlicks. Japanese advancing in
China.
Let's
Let's get closer to today. We're running low on
we're good still. We got that. This is moving pretty quick at this point.
MLB Cleveland Indians start. Bill Veeck. None of this is too. Dalai Lama surrenders. Oh, 1951, Chinese Communists forced Dalai Lama to surrender his army to Beijing. Let's see about that.
The 14th Dalai Lama escaped from China together with members of his family and his government. They flooded the authorities. Apparently he had his own army at the... Interesting. I didn't know Dalai Lama had an army.
I didn't know he had an army either. Gotta be honest.
French raid Algiers in 1956. Nuclear test. in
Atmospheric
1956
tests. U.S. performs nuclear tests.
At Inuitak Atoll. I've heard that name.
Atmospheric test. What's an atmospheric test?
Atoll of the Marshall Islands. It's a large coral atoll of 40 islands in the Pacific Ocean where its 296 people forms a legislative district.
But it says atmospheric tests.
Yeah, it was the...
So shot him up in the sky.
Yeah, so it seems like Operation Red Wing.
There's a fucking video of it.
First air-deployed thermonuclear weapons test by the United States. Yep. Tended to be used primarily for thermonuclear weapons, small tactical weapons for air defense. Damn.
I've seen a bomb like that go off on camera, bro. That's really scary.
Little Rock crisis. Ernest Green becomes the first African American to graduate from Little Rock Central High School.
Go Ernest.
Yeah. 101st Airborne Division escort the 9 black students into Little Rock School. So they had to get escorted, man. Like, that's crazy.
So fucking wild that that's our history. Oh my God. Baltimore manager Paul Richards devised oversized catcher's mitt used by Baltimore Oriole. You just change it to I can't read. Clint Courtney. Okay.
Yeah, just baseball stuff there. Long jump record back in 61. First Prime Minister of Kenya. 6 French fighters crash above Spain in 66. More sports history. First meeting of the National Union of Students of France.
Television. All right, let's scroll down.
Walt Disney World construction began in 69.
Oh, the construction actually.
Yep. British expedition climbs south face of Annapurna
Another nuclear
Himalayas.
test. USSR performs nuclear test.
at the semi
Northeast Kazakhstan.
Yep. USSR putting off nuclear weapons. John Lennon's Imagine in 1971. Paul McCartney, Venus and Mars album. Worst motor vehicle disaster in UK in 1975. Brakes fail on a bus full of elderly women and it plunges 17 feet off the road, killing 33. A similar incident occurred, killing 11 in 1925. Damn.
They should really just get rid of that fucking bridge.
South Korean police ends people's uprising. 2,000 were killed. Korean police ends people's uprising. 2,000 killed in the
Gwangju Massacre. South Korea airborne and
Army
army troops retake city of Gwangju from civil militias, killing at least 207. Well, it sounds like that was a violent thing.
Oh yeah, 2,000 people killed. Just
Well, no, I mean like it sounds like they were going against a militia,
Yeah.
like an armed. That's an entirely different thing. That's different than like a peaceful protest. Oh, I'm so sorry. My allergies are crazy right now.
John Hinckley attempts suicide after attempting to assassinate.
Who was John Hinckley?
The guy who tried to kill President Reagan?
Oh,
And then
that's
he
right.
tried
That's
to
right.
commit suicide with Tylenol. USSR performed nuclear test at the site.
You're trying to
again in
commit suicide
Kazakhstan.
with Tylenol?
Yep. Britain agrees to return Hong Kong to China in 97.
Why
Wow.
is the picture of him where he's laying down on the concrete like that, like he just jumped off a building?
As him, I think he was
Passed out?
the scene moments after Hinckley attempted to assassinate.
Oh,
the
that's
president.
okay. I
Yeah.
see. Is
Freaking like an Uzi in his hand.
that a
It was-
cop?
I don't know. I don't know who any of these people are.
Well, you should know this stuff, Zane.
I don't know though.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I thought. Never mind.
Yeah, but Hong Kong only got back to China in 97. So there's a part of both of our lives where Hong Kong was not.
Part of China.
Yeah.
1985 inaugural bands parade for President Reagan.
France performs nuclear
We all know
tests.
how much Reagan loved drugs.
France did tests in 86 with nuclear weapons.
Loved drugs. Look at that smile. He's on drugs right there.
President Reagan ordered 2 Poseidon-class submarines to be dismantled. Senate ratified a treaty eliminating medium-range nuclear missiles. Austrian Boeing 767-300 explodes in Bangkok, killing 223. Damn.
The Flintstones, 1994.
The Arsenio Hall show,
What's up with the Flintstones, though?
live action movie based in the 60s.
With Rick Moranis and John Goodman and Rosie O'Donnell. It's great.
Larry King ends his radio show in 94.
Christopher Reeve
Is
paralyzed from the neck down after falling from his horse in a riding competition. Christopher Reeves, as you may or may not know, played Superman.
First all-female team reached the North Pole.
Look at that jawline. My God. Holy shit, bro.
Oklahoma City bombing. Frontier sentenced to 12 years in prison and fined $200,000 for failing to warn authorities about the terrorist plot.
For not telling police about his friend Timothy McVeigh's plan to bomb the Alfred P. Muroff Federal Building.
Admitted that he could have stopped the bombing and the deaths of 168 people if he had notified the authorities. Damn, I didn't even know about the bombing.
Oklahoma bombing? I knew about the bombing, but I didn't really.
168 people. Damn. 1998.
There are many ways to go down in history, and killing a lot of people is one of them. Some people choose that option.
I remember this. The Indonesia strike and tsunami that hit killed 6,600 people.
Yeah, it was 2006.
NATO airstrike kills a family of 8, including 6 children in Afghanistan. 75 people are killed and 200 injured in a wave of bombings across Iraq.
Well, we're having too much silence here while we're scrolling through this.
2016, 3 ships in 3 days sink carrying immigrants across the Mediterranean,
Drowning over 700 people. In India, white, puffy, toxic foam begins spilling out of Varthur Lake onto city streets. That's in 2017. What is the foam? What is the toxic foam? India, white, puffy, toxic foam.
Heavy
Monsoonal rain and thunderstorms have triggered a new episode of frothy foam loaded with toxic chemicals. According to the Bengali Emir, the foam is rising from the lake and onto the streets of the capital city, known locally as Bangalore in India's southern state, Karnataka. Did I sound like a CNN radio host from... No, not at all. Maybe a British one. Oil workers for Brazil. Who are those kids?
K-pop boy band.
Oh, K-pop. Sebastian Kitz.
America's COVID-19 death toll passed 100,000.
I did not know in 2019, world's rivers widely contaminated with antibiotics, according to a new global study of 711 sites. First of its kind, researchers from the University of York in the UK analyzed samples from rivers in 72 countries and found that antibiotics were present in 65% of them. What year is this?
2017. 19.
Less than 5 years ago?
Yeah.
65% of the world's rivers
Have some sort of
are contaminated with antibiotics.
Yeah.
2020, America's COVID-19 death toll passes 100,000. Johns Hopkins figures equal to number of U.S. servicemen and women killed in Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan put together. We're so close to the end, but go back up. There's 2 more that I didn't get to see, and we're right here within the last 4 years. 2020, locust swarms in western and central India, worst since 1993 after spreading from Pakistan and Iran due to extreme weather. 2020, Spain begins 10 days of mourning for victims of COVID-19 with death toll just under 27,000. U.S. Secretary Mike Pompeo says Hong Kong no longer has autonomy from China.
Nope.
Is that Rwandan?
Yeah, French president recognizes France's role in the Rwandan genocide after a meeting with Rwanda president.
Good guy, mate. Wow.
Biden calls for ceasefire in North Ethiopia, citing killings and widespread sexual violence as a weapon of war.
That's what Ringo Starr looks like right now. Oh my gosh.
What? And we're
Well,
caught up at that point.
We're pretty here. Well, that was interesting. A lot of some
Learned
of that.
some things.
Some of that was interesting. Some of it wasn't.
Some unnecessary sports history. If you're a
Yeah.
sports fan, maybe you cared about some of that stuff. But
Maybe.
been another good week, man. Good to
It
hang
was
out
a
with
good
you.
week. I'm glad we're here. If you could all just say hello to your mother for me.
And tell somebody you love them. Like, subscribe, do all the shit. I love you. See you next week.
Thanks for being here.
Peace.